It's Zarek from Real Chiropractic Dynamics. I'm back again with my friend Travis, live this time instead of
person.
over Zoom, because if they close the bars, then Travis will make his own bar. And our last video, Shit Chiropractors Say, was a little bit provocative, but people really liked it, and it challenged a lot of the people's way of thinking. And I received a few messages saying like, oh, that really was thought-provoking, thank you for putting that out there. I'm sure you did as well. So today we're going to take a little bit of a different take on it and explore another direction. Do you want to explain what we're going to talk about today, Travis?
Yeah. Thanks, Zarek. And nice having you here, by the way, too.
Thank you.
What we thought when you asked me to do this again, that I thought it'd only be fair that if we kind of take a crack at the other extreme.
Yeah.
Because it seemed maybe a little lopsided. I like to be equally critical of both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And the last time was really pretty hard on the one extreme.
Mm-hmm.
So this time I thought maybe why don't we just do like things that the Mechanists say, or
Shit Mechanists Say.
shit Mechanists say,
Right.
or subluxation deniers, or whatever you want to call them. But
I'm
I
ready
don't call
for
them
it.
chiropractors. Yeah.
Okay. And for the last time I'd had a look at the list. You'd sent me a list of 10 things before.
Yeah.
So I was able to go into it with kind of a view of, all right, probably I agree with this and this. This one I'm really interested to see what he's going to say. And actually I left pretty much, I think, agreeing with everything that he said. This one I'm going in basically completely blind. I've had a very brief look at the list here, but I haven't had time to come up with any thoughts of it or anything like that. But I'm really curious to see what you have to explain to us. So let's kick it off and jump into Shit Mechanists Say.
All right. What I did was I wrote these on my phone. Didn't really hash them out too well. But I also want to say too, like you said, that last one we did, that some of those you found yourself you agreed with. It's easy for us all to agree when something appeals to reason, right? We all have the capacity to reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's our emotions that kind of are a little tumultuous at times, and they get us wrapped up and kind of distract us.
Well,
right?
well, that's interesting. That's what we were saying before we put the camera on. When I first came into contact with Travis, he's saying a lot of these things that I wasn't really raised around. So my natural inclination is like fuck you, I don't agree with what he's saying. Like, this doesn't make sense. But then the good thing about Travis is he explains what he's saying in a very logical, very reasonable way. And actually 9 times out of 10, you'll listen to what he has to say and you're like, oh, actually that makes complete sense. And that's the good thing, is not having that emotional reaction so much and just kind of sticking to your guns,
Yeah.
but be open to explore other ways of thinking. And then sometimes you'll find that actually it's a more clear way of thinking. Would you agree?
Dude, yeah, that's 100%. And I wish everyone was like that. That, like I say, that requires very strong character. You have to be really confident in yourself to overcome those emotions and that initial gut reaction. Because it's real easy to stay locked into that emotional, like resentment or whatever it is, your ego, your pride, or something. So yeah, that's 100%. Don't let the emotions get in the way, right? Because they can change in 5 minutes or in 5 days, 5 years. But reasoning is systematic, and it's always reliable, right? Not to say that emotions don't have their place. Anyway, so we can do these in any particular order. It doesn't matter,
as you want.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take it away.
I'll take I'm going to go to this one first. The subluxation is a historical concept. How do you feel about that one?
Well, if we don't, just on first impression from hearing that, if we don't have subluxation, then our entire philosophy is thrown out of the window. And basically what you're doing is just randomly popping bones, which means you're the same as the physical therapist or the physiotherapist or the bone setter. And I think what we're doing is a lot more special than that, and we're a bit more specialized than that. But the subluxation is the key to that, because if you don't have that, then you're just guessing and you're randomly popping bones. I said this the other day. I was at the physio. I have an injury and I go to the physio once a week, and she was saying like, oh yeah, I do some adjustments. I'm like, You know when you can feel yourself getting into a confrontation and you're like, do you? Yeah. And she uses the term adjustment, which is good, by the way, but they want our lexicon. Yeah. They want what you have.
Yeah.
And I says, okay, tell me how you do adjustments. Well, I do them in the thoracics and I do them in the lumbars. I don't do the cervicals though, because if you do it wrong in the cervicals, you could put someone in a wheelchair. I'm like, oh, where do I start? I'm like, okay, what you're doing is a manipulation. I explained objective findings.
Yeah.
I was like, what's the difference between a butcher and a surgeon? And she thought about it for a little. This is during the physiotherapy session, which I paid for, by the way. And I'm like, okay, well, the surgeon is much more precise, and they have a different intent. The intent is to preserve your life, and they need to be a lot more precise with that. Whereas with a butcher, you can just chop anything and off it goes. And I says, what you're doing is essentially the same thing. Like, we have more precision, and we have a different intent to what you do. You're just trying to unstick a stuck joint.
Yeah.
This goes so much, and then I explained to her what an objective finding is and how an objective finding works, and then we had to go into the whole technique thing, because I explained how there's different techniques that use different objective findings, but we're all going towards the subluxation. And actually, by the end of the session, she was like, okay, that makes sense. And I was like, can you see how calling it an adjustment is kind of going against what you're saying? You're saying words and you don't know what they mean, basically. And actually, she was very open-minded, and she agreed. She was on my team after that.
Oh man, 100% what you said, and this is why the last one we did was so important. What you just said. How many people are using words they don't know the meaning of? Yeah. Define your terms. When I talk about the liberal arts in my private Facebook group, that's the first liberal art. Is define your terms.
Shout out to the group, because it's good.
Please, it's free. It's group Veritas Vos Liberbad. Yeah, it's in Latin, but just look for the Veritas group or message me. I'll send you an invite. But what you said about that is, define your terms. Don't use words you don't know what they mean. Mm-hmm. That is a big problem, more so on the other extreme that we took a fair criticism of last time. Also, it's interesting. By the way, I love the analogy with the butcher and surgeon. I've been in practice for a while. I've never heard that, and that's a great analogy.
I didn't come up with that. That was Andrea Cecchi I got that from. But yeah, okay. I like the analogy.
Learning by analogy is the best, especially with conceptual stuff. What I would say to the claim that subluxation is... So I'll use an analogy, too. That subluxation is a historical concept. That does not validate getting rid of the word, right? Yep. Diabetes is a historical word, is probably longer in history than subluxation, but we don't get rid of it despite learning more, having a better understanding of diabetes. We just evolve with it, but we don't throw the word out. Yep. Now, the evidence-based, or let's say mechanistic zealots just want to throw this word out for what? Yeah. For what reason? Simply because they don't understand it? They can't define their terms? Yeah. So they wouldn't do that with many of the other words that are even older than subluxation.
Just because it's old?
Yeah, so the claim that it's simply historical is not valid enough to dismiss with the word. Mm-hmm. That doesn't appeal to reason.
I got called a dinosaur the other day for talking about patient listings. Like, how are you diagnosing using patient listings? And I thought, I'd really hate to be related to one of these people, because imagine you're sitting around the dinner table with the family and granddad's there, and they're like, granddad, he's getting kind of old. Let's just get rid of him. Yeah. Granddad's a historical concept. Like, okay, granddad is old, but he's a part of this family just as much as the rest of us. Like, let him be part of it. Just because something's old doesn't mean that you should just throw it out.
Right. But you can always develop your understanding.
Sure.
That's hilarious. Next one. Okay. Oh, there's a couple good ones here. Philosophy-based chiropractors are dangerous. What do you think of that one?
Dangerous how?
They're a danger to their clients.
This gets into the whole thing about intent. Because the thing is, if I get onto a plane and the pilot does not know what he's doing, but he's like, I intend to fly. Like, I'm sure that's lovely, and I'm sure the pilot's a really nice guy and he's lovely, but I need to make sure that you're going to be able to land that plane safely. Yeah. So don't, this is just on first impression, don't use the philosophy as like a shield of, well, I have really good philosophy and I have good intent, that means I'm not going to hurt anybody.
Right.
No, do your job properly and make sure that you are being safe. And chiropractic, when done properly and when done objectively, is incredibly safe. Nothing bad is going to happen. Even if you don't clear it, if you don't clear the subluxation, nothing bad's going to happen.
Right.
But I do think that a lot of people who do have a good intent and they're good people, they maybe hide behind that of like, oh, because I have a good intent, nothing bad's going to happen. Whereas maybe when you're doing that, you skip a part of the history, or you skip a part of the objectivity that you shouldn't be skipping over, and that's when it can get dangerous.
Now, I would agree with that too, and I would say that the mechanists actually have a point there. Like, that's a valid criticism if someone's using philosophy in the way that you say, right? As a shield,
as
or
a coping, coping mechanism, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, as a way to shirk your responsibilities as a clinician and a chiropractor. You're using it as like, well, it's my intentions, or Nate tells me about it. That's a fair criticism of like what I would call the more spiritualistic extreme, right? Mm-hmm. This materialistic extreme, so they would have a fair point if that was the case. However, many of them just dismiss philosophy
in its entirety.
You're correct, right? And in fact, there's which is funny. You're saying that etymologically, philosophy means love of wisdom. So you're going, people that love wisdom are dangerous. Like the safer alternative is people that hate wisdom.
Yeah.
Right?
I hate learning. So.
Yeah. Oh, wisdom and the expression of knowledge and understanding and intelligence, very dangerous. I don't like that.
Look at this nerd studying.
So that one's pretty easy to dismiss. Well, it's really a ridiculous claim from the materialistic. And it even, like, I don't know if you're in this group, but there's a Facebook group actually called, like, I don't want to give the full name, but it's like, no chiropractors, and it says basically no philosophers. We're not having that in this group.
Yeah.
This is a group for discussion, but no wisdom, right? Which the wisdom is the expression of intelligence or expression of knowledge and understanding. But we won't have that in our group because we're scientists.
Yeah,
right.
It comes from having those discussions.
Yeah.
BJ said it would be good if religion had a little bit more science, and it would be good if science had a little bit more religion.
Ooh, yeah.
So if you take that same what he's saying, but applied to, you have the very mechanistic kind of objectivity, like, there's no randomized, controlled, double-blinded placebo trials that show that love exists, therefore I can't love my kids. And then you've got the people on the other side that are like, well, I just listen to what the universe tells me, and that tells me what to adjust. All right. There's probably merit to a bit of both of those, but somewhere in the middle we can have a conversation. 100%. It would be a good thing if the objectivity side had a little bit more of, let's listen to innate intelligence, and it would be good if this side had a little bit more, okay, let's have a bit more evidence to back up what we're doing.
Yeah, 100%. That goes to like one of the core values of chiropractic, that it's holistic, right? And it's the same with anything. Personality-wise, we should all be holistic. If you're only expressing like your rational side and not your emotional side, or you only give weight to one or not the other, it's always going to lead to a problem, right? And that's what I see in the world right now. There's an incredible toxicity of emotion and a deficiency in reason. And you wonder why the world's the way it is, not let alone the profession. You need a balance, right? You're equipped with both for a reason. You have a capacity for reason and a capacity for emotion. Mm-hmm. It's best to learn what's their role and their function, right? It's easy to do with anatomy. Like the structure of the heart and its function, the nervous system, all this stuff. But then when I start to ask you about like, what's the role and the function or the anatomy of your mind? These like abstract, immaterial concepts like memory, emotions, subconscious, right?
Yeah.
Reason, thought, critical thinking. All those are important too, and they all play with each other, and just like the heart plays with the lungs, and they all function together, but they have their own specific function. And what we have done lately is really basically ignore this and deny it, right? That's what, But anyway, that was off topic. Next, I call these talismanic words, and a lot of the materialistic chiropractors use these, or the mechanist, evidence-based, subluxation deniers, whatever you want to call them. They're always labeling themselves
pseudo-chiropractors.
Yeah, they're
pseudo-medical doctors.
Yeah.
If you're not going to be a chiropractor or a medical doctor,
go 10 bar, pour me a beer, right? Basically, what I would say is that they use, or they identify themselves with these. I call them talismanic words because they hypnotize the viewer, and that is they present themselves as forward-thinking chiropractic, progressive chiropractic. We're progressing chiropractic, evidence-based, right? Those are just words. Those are just words.
Sorry to interrupt, but they put like as their Instagram username, as their Instagram handle, like I don't want to shout them out, but like evidence-based such and such, like and evidence-informed such and such. Like when you have to put it in the Instagram title, like maybe there's something wrong. It's like these people say vegan bodybuilder. Why do I need to know that?
Yeah.
Why is your dietary habits in your Instagram username?
Same when someone says like, you can trust me, I'm honest. If you have to tell me, then you're not, right? Or if someone tells me how rich they are, how much money they have, it immediately casts out. Like the fact that you have to present it, and rather that I can't just judge it on your character, tells me something, right? If you need to push forward that you're forward thinking, or
I tell my patients because you know, I live in Barcelona, so it's a very kind of cosmopolitan. People come and go. Yeah, I have a lot of expats. I have a lot of students. So sometimes you lose a patient because they go to a different country, or like I'm going to graduate soon, so I'm going somewhere else. So now my patients are asking me, they're like, oh, hey, should I go to this guy or this guy? Like you get these messages. I'm like, look, this guy has evidence-based in his username, and he is wearing a white coat and a stethoscope. He is not going to be able to adjust worth of shit. Like he's going to be able to diagnose you as best as you can, but this is not the service that you're looking for. Or at least what you're used with me. Not that I'm the be all and end all, but I'm like, this is not going to be anything like what you're going to get with me, because this guy is trying to play medical doctor. That's a bit of a side tangent, but anyway.
Yeah, that guy can recommend a good cold laser program or something. I'm sure.
And give you a good exercise and nutrition routine.
Yeah. By the way, nothing wrong with those. Just not really chiropractic. Okay, next one. This one's put out there a lot, right? Mm-hmm. It's all about the patient's experience, right? Your philosophy, none of this matters. It's what's best for the patient. Mm-hmm. Well, what's best for the patient, that's often used by the materialistic, evidence-based, whatever. That's used by them to justify their denial of subluxation, to justify their research. But when you keep referring to the patient, it's similar to virtue signaling, right? You're like, I'm all about the patient. We can argue, but me, I'm all about the patient. So you can use that to justify anything. But if it's truly about what's in the best interest of the patient, then you're going to do your job really well. You're a chiropractor, you do chiropractic really well. You don't give financial advice, marriage counseling, you don't fix their toilets, you don't cut their hair. You do chiropractic, right? If you want to do physical therapy, why? There are a lot of qualified physical therapists out there who are really good, right? So if you really have the patient's best interest, you become the best clinician, period, and you locate, analyze, correct vertebral subluxation, period. This is just another, it's really political rhetoric to keep saying what's in the patient's best interest, because with that, you can say anything, right? Well, the patient needs new glasses. Does that make you a better chiropractor if you're going to like fill their prescription? Or are you going to send them to an optician? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I had a debate with someone a week or two ago because I had a patient come in. I'm like dabbling. I wouldn't say I'm a gondroid, but I'm dabbling in Gonstead at the moment. And when I ran the scope, they had like the red tracks going down. And just with their symptomatology, what they're complaining about, I'm thinking inflammation. I'm thinking this person's very inflamed. And I just said to her, I was like, hey, you are very inflamed by the looks of it, by what you're saying, by, the red lines on the scope, just by how you feel. Maybe there's something nutritionally going on. What's your diet like? Well, my boyfriend's Peruvian. He makes me a lot of carbs. He makes me a lot of rice, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, maybe there's something he's cooking that you're intolerant to, or maybe you're just having way too many carbs. I don't really know. Probably you should go for a food intolerance test, or you should go to a dietitian or something like that. And I was telling this, and that was the end of the conversation. I was like, this is probably going to help you, but now we get back to work. Let me do what I do. And the patient was happy. I said this to a colleague, and they were like, oh, well, why didn't you sit with that person and guide them through the process? I'm like, okay, look, I probably know more about I was a personal trainer before I came in. I probably know more about nutrition than the average person on the street, but by no means am I a specialist.
Right.
The person that's gone to college and has studied this for 4 years and has dedicated the last 10 years of his life or her life to learn this shit is going to be able to do a so much better job than this, but they can't correct your subluxation the way I can. 100%. That's why I'm going to stick with this, and you go to the dietitian for that. But we don't get that because we want to be the nutritionist, the psychologist, the marriage psychologist, the barber, the optician. Just do chiropractic, do it the way that you're supposed to do it. In order to, the people that make the most money in this world are the people that are specialists. Yeah. So let's just be specialists. Not that it's all about the money, because I'll get hate for that. It's like walking on eggshells. Yeah, be a specialist.
You did by doing that too. You did what was in that patient's best interest, right? You simply listen. I got clients that come in. They say all the time this, that, and I ask just to show concern, right? And recommend, like, hey, have you looked at one of these specialists? But by you giving that, you're doing a disservice to the client by trying to do everything for them. Like a training program, exercise, food, this, that. Jesus, man. Yeah. You really are doing them a disservice because you're doing a disservice to other professions, right? Just like many are doing to us.
Just like the physio saying I do adjustments.
Yeah.
Oh, I do nutrition plans.
Yeah. Well, fun. I forgot to mention that, but some of my ACP people will say, and I would agree, even chiropractors don't do adjustments. We do corrections, and Innate Intelligence does the adjustment.
Okay. I would say, oh, that's just semantics, but he gets mad when you say that's just semantics. But okay, I get it. All right.
That's all right. We'll move on. But that's it. Regardless, we won't use that. The best you can do for the patients is do chiropractic. Right? Chiropractic.
I agree. Yeah.
Also, okay, next one. And this one just came out recently. I saw a tweet from, I don't want to say the guy's name, but it's very similar to, let's say, Chow Kuk. Yeah, okay. So Dr. Chow Kuk puts out a tweet. It says, like, this meta-analysis data, there is zero evidence that chiropractic helps non-MSK, non-musculoskeletal conditions. What do you think of that one?
Well, because there's no randomized controlled double-blinded placebo trial that says it. Because no one's written about it in a journal article, that means it doesn't exist. Yeah, it's like a wall that these people, they keep coming up against. They're like, look. And also, these research articles, it's almost as if it's one part of the puzzle. It's one part of the tool. It's like people get mad at me for what about the scope? You can, like, manipulate how the things are. Yeah, the scope is one part of the whole puzzle. You don't adjust based on a scope the same way you don't adjust only based on an x-ray or only based, but it's one part of it. And I see research as kind of the same thing. It's like we've got this whole puzzle, and the research, it's an important part, and I agree with that. But this is one part of the puzzle, and also these papers, they can be easily manipulated. It's just words written on paper. So but it's like a wall that they come up against. Like, it wasn't written in the journal. It wasn't written in the journal, therefore it doesn't exist. Yeah. No, man. There's an ethereal part of this as well, and just because it hasn't been studied or it can't be studied just yet doesn't mean that you should automatically discount it. Be skeptical and be critical, but don't just cast it out because it wasn't in a journal.
Yeah, 100%. And what my friend Johnny Collar would say, he's like, before you keep demanding more evidence or saying there is no evidence, have you looked at the other evidence? This is one of the things I see with students all the time, because under the influence of their faculty, they think that we're just waiting on the perfect research project, once that comes, oh man, we're all so validated, bro. That's what we need. We need more research. We need more research.
Then
we need more research.
People will accept us, and then I can be a real doctor, and then my dad will love me.
I'll be validated. But the thing is, like, before you keep this mantra of like more research, we need more research, have you looked at the research that currently exists, right? Because there's so much out there to support subluxation. But of course the researchers like Chow Kuk and all these other guys, they're researchers. Do you understand that, like, it's good that you're asking for more research? It's what keeps them in business. Like, lawyers like that people are in conflict. Pharmaceutical companies like that you're not healthy. Researchers love for you to be convinced there's not enough research. And they're the ones that keep promoting there needs to be more research. But I'll tell you what, there is not a single drop of evidence for the Pythagorean theorem, because it's all conforms to reason. When you have consistent premises, that all these geometric principles that are consistent with one another, you can deductively conclude the Pythagorean theorem. I don't need there's not a single randomized controlled placebo, blah. And most of what we're using right now, technology, there are no studies, right? None, zero, right? Because it conforms to reason. So, and you brought up a good point earlier too. I will have to watch this back and remember it myself. But research is fantastic. I love evidence. It really is nice, right? That's how we accumulate knowledge, right? Our database. But like I've said so many times, all the evidence in the world, all the knowledge in the world is 100% useless at best. And for these researchers, it's political weaponry at its worst. That's what they use it for. You can draw conclusions from deductive reasoning in a systematic way. And the fact that this is consistently denied by the evidence-based, materialistic extremists, religious zealots, right? It's appalling, right? So this holds no water when they continually say there is no evidence to that chiropractic offers outcomes for non-musculoskeletal conditions. Well, good news, because we don't care. We're not treating any conditions. We're looking to locate, analyze, and correct vertebral subluxation. The client you spoke to about their diet or their gut problems or whatever it is, I hope they see a nutritionist, right? But whatever they're dealing with nutritionally, they'll deal with it better without a freaking vertebral subluxation. And that's all we're focused on. It's really simple. I'm not concerned about their nutritional outcome, their gut outcome. I'm concerned that they can adapt as optimally as possible. Yeah. That's it, right? So those studies, even if you have them, even if you had studies that showed chiropractic, validated research studies that show chiropractic does in fact improve non-musculoskeletal outcomes, so what? I'm still not treating those things, regardless of the amount of evidence or research. Yeah? I don't know. I hope that makes that clear.
I agree.
All right. Next, what's this? Patient clinical. Oh, yeah. Back on this. The clinician's experience. Evidence-based practice. Isn't that, like, you would probably know it better still being a student, because I'm sure it's pumped down your throat a little bit. But they also say that there's room for, or that the clinician's expertise, experience is also part of the equation.
Okay.
Yet, every time it comes up, every case study, these are consistently denied by who else? Mm-hmm. The research, the chiropractic research community, right? Because if any of what they have is accepted, it illustrates the lack of need for them, right? They are completely irrelevant when you can deductively validate chiropractic care. At that moment, right? And then basically by denying all these clinicians' experience and their case studies, this is like throwing away lots of evidence. How do evidence-based practitioners justify dismissing evidence?
So just to confirm, because I'm a bit lost, do you mean that if someone does a huge group study and studies this thing, from these guys' perspective, that has more evidence to compare to if I have 50 years of experience in the office and I've seen these?
I would say either way.
Incidences of people getting up out of wheelchairs and people having amazing changes to their life, but I didn't write any of it down.
Sure.
Then is that what you're saying? It's not evidence?
Both, actually, because I'm sure many people watching this understand too. That guy that's been in practice 50 years and has seen this every time.
Seen some shit.
So even if he wrote it down every time with incredible documentation, because it doesn't fit the researcher's paradigm, it's still going to be dismissed. So it really doesn't matter whether it's the person that's just observing it and doesn't document it, and the person doing it and documenting it.
Okay.
The authorities, the scholastic or academic authorities, aren't going to accept it regardless.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Well,
yet what they're doing is saying that, and this is kind of their like political cop out. You said in the evidence-based practice, they have to say that well, of course, Yeah, the clinician's experience is critically important as well when determining care and this and that. But yet they're always dismissive of that.
Right.
Right? Oh, you need to follow this is not evidence-based.
Okay.
Yeah, but I have all this experience that shows me otherwise.
Okay.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. We go to well, how can you say that but yet say the clinician's experience is relevant?
Yeah.
When you're at the same, on one hand saying it's relevant, and then the other hand saying that's not evidence-based practice. They're trying to have it both ways.
You have people, I'm just at the start of my career, but you have people like Stu Bittman, who has finished his career, he's retired now, and he says, I've got dozens and dozens of women who were infertile and were able to conceive a baby. I have had one case where the woman came and me and my husband have been trying for years to have a baby. We've done IVF, we've done the hormone therapy, we've done the nutrition plans, we've done everything. I cannot conceive. I was like, I don't know the special adjustment that's going to get you to be able to conceive, but I can check you for subluxation. I adjusted her a couple of times and she was able to conceive. And I spoke to this guy who was very MSK based, and he's like, it's evidence based that I can help with MSK. And I explained this case, and he's like, well, you've no evidence for that. And I'm like, no, there's no way that I can really conclusively prove that, but for sure she had a better chance of conceiving without subluxation. This is the thing that Monique Andrews is saying as well, because she's like, look, chiropractic doesn't boost shit. We don't boost your immune system, but your immune system has a much better chance of functioning well if you're without subluxation. Yeah. So I can I can see where the mechanists get frustrated with this. Yeah. I can see it because we're saying things like, we can help the infertile, we can help you if you've got XYZ condition with you, we can boost your immune system. It's like, yeah, that's hard to prove, but what we can do is if we specialize and we're focusing on the subluxation, you've probably got a much better chance of not having these issues. If you're without subluxation, you've got that nervous system integrity. Yeah. So it's kind of like we're saying the same thing, but we're saying it in a different way that makes more sense, you know?
Yeah. We're simply, this goes back to what we started talking about at the very beginning, defining your terms. When that guy, the colleague said to you, where's your evidence? Well, I would ask him to I would ask him, what do you mean define evidence? What I observe with my eyes or my ears is evidence. When a detective walks into a crime scene, whatever he sees, that's evidence.
Sure.
Things are evident, right? Then he draws on his intuition, past experiences. He starts to draw conclusions. They should conform to reason if possible. But everything you observe in that room with your five senses, that's actually evidence, right?
Yeah.
Just because it's not documented with all, we should do a whole nother one of these basically on evidence-based practice and just shred it.
The more people we can piss off, I'm here.
But yeah, I agree 100%. It's ridiculous. And also, what you were saying, it's real simple. Chiropractic, I know that those clients, I would never promise or say that I can help or treat this or do this. I just know that your opportunity and your chances are way better without a vertebral subluxation, period.
Yeah.
Right? I know my computer operates better without a virus on there. Sure. I know that, right? I don't need a study or evidence. When something's interfering with my processor, it's not processing at 100%. Right? I don't know.
Have a better chance of that working if we clear it of the virus.
Exactly. Yeah. It makes sense to me.
Simple. Not easy, but simple.
Yeah, well said. All right, let's see what the next one is. We have only a couple here left. We did the MSK. We talked about that. We need more research. We need more sheets. All about patients, clinical experience. MSK only. Oh, yeah. We can do these two together, actually. Sure. Open bay and care frequency. So you'll hear from... I still don't understand this. I'm not sure what the justification for this is. But saying that open bay care and care frequency, high, low, it doesn't matter. Some people just like to complain, I suppose. But the claim that these are unethical.
You want a beer, Travis?
Oh, that'd be great. Are you refilling? Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Not the most professional podcast I've ever been on, but I'll let it go.
I never claimed that it would have been.
You're Irish. That's fine. I wouldn't expect anything less. open bay and care plans, that these are unethical.
Right.
Okay.
You're just doing that to make money.
Yeah, right. Although I would argue that you're doing it just to make money by not seeing them enough to actually correct the subluxation patterns. That is money grubbing, that you only see them to get them out of symptom, right? Because they'll be right back with the same symptom later because you're not correcting the underlying cause. I would consider that more because you've got them on the hook like a drug, right?
Sure.
They're using chiropractic like a paracetamol,
yeah.
or like, so they always need to come back for the pain treatment, right? I would consider that way more unethical. Yeah. Plus, it's not based on the principles of chiropractic. Principles are fundamental truths useful in a system or chain of reasoning. So if it's unprincipled care, I would consider that unethical because it's not principled. And what you're doing is duping the client. But like an extensive care plan, open bay, by the way, open bay, if you're in a closed room, that opens you up to a lot of legal problems as well. It's just closed room. Yeah, closed room. It's just you and me in there, right? Yeah. I can come out there and claim you did all sorts of things to me. But in an open bay, everyone's protected. The client is protected legally. The doctor's protected legally. There is nothing unethical about open bay. Nothing. If you need to do the intake and all the exams, those are done in a closed room where clothes come off and all that stuff, right? Yeah. I would love to see some justification, any justification, that either of those two things, a frequency of care or open bay, first define what do you mean unethical? Because I would argue doing it any other way is unethical.
Yeah, I would jump in with one point there that you touched on. You said if you're not alleviating their symptomatology, then they're using it as a paracetamol. Yeah. But I think as well, man, like sometimes people hide behind that because they'll be like, okay, well, I'm not getting any patient results, but that's because you didn't follow the care plan, or that's because you, like, okay, they're better without subluxations, but this is the Gonstead fan in me. I think we should be focusing on getting them results. If that means alleviating symptomatology, for me, that's okay. As long as that comes through the analysis, detection, and correction of vertebral subluxation. But I think there are people in the profession that are vitalistic, doing open plan, but then maybe they're not quite getting the results that they could because the standard of care isn't as good as it could be. And then when the patient doesn't get results, they're like, okay, well, maybe your knee pain didn't heal up, but your body's fighting the cancer that you could have had. Stuff like that kind of winds me up a little bit. But I do agree that open plan's fine, and I think you provide a very good opportunity for education, because if you're educating the patient on bench number 3 over here, the person on bench number 5 is still hearing that, and it's going to save a lot of time, energy, and money. Yeah,
100% agree. I like what you said about that too, and I want to add on that as well. I would love for all my clients, all their symptomology to go away, 100%. Even though it's not my focus, I deeply care about their well-being, how they feel. I really do. However, I don't allow it to distract my care.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So it is a fine line, and I understand what you're saying about the vitalistic or that aspect, and that is a fair criticism. However, when someone asks me like about their symptomology, like I don't do this all the time, but with the clients that have been with me for a while and something pops up and they just start asking me about this, like, oh, when do you think that'll go away? Like sometimes I have a little smart ass sarcastic answer. I'm like, oh yeah, April 3rd at 2:40 p.m. Like what the hell do you think? I don't know.
Yeah.
It'll get better when it's ready. Once you've healed, that's when it gets better. And I know that you'll heal better and have a better chance when I get rid of this. But I really just want to correct these subluxations because I know you have the best chance. When it happens for you, that's up to your body. And maybe it won't get better. That's really up to the limits of time and matter, too. How far along are you? How severe is it? How old are you? All those things are important, too. But I'm always going to do my best and do my best at locating, analyzing, correcting vertebral subluxation. So simple, so concise, so freaking eloquent. Yeah. This again why I love this profession so much, And that's why I think you and I and many people probably watching this get very frustrated with how this profession gets twisted into something else, something that's not even chiropractic, right? That you're
therapy.
And what you said earlier is so true. You want to be successful in any business, you need to be a specialist, right? That guy that's doing everything he's not doing very well at all, right? And there are at least 11 other registered professions that are specialists in low back pain, right? The neurologist, the orthopedic, the licensed massage therapist, Reiki, God knows whatever, acupuncture. All these people dealing with low back pain, and you want to compete with that. That's ridiculous. Yeah. No one else is locating, analyzing, correcting vertebral subluxation, right? Yeah. It's insanity, right?
I agree.
Anyway, I think that was. Do we have one more?
One more.
Oh yeah. Okay. The last one was the X-rays. Now this one, this one's not so triggering, but it's real simple. It comes down to defining your terms and your objectives. And when I brought up the choose wisely,
it's triggering for me.
Yeah. you're a Gonstead, yeah. So of course,
I'm heading that way. Not yet, but yeah, I'm flirting with it.
So many of you know, like there were some guidelines. I think they were put out by the ACA, the American Chiropractic Association, and basically stating that the X-rays should be reserved only when clinically indicated. Or it's kind of ridiculous. But imagine for a moment that you're an upper cervical doctor, right? And so first, let me clarify the Choose Wisely program. And by the way, cleverly named, right? Do you support the Choose Wisely program?
Sure.
Oh, that means you're wise.
Oh, good.
But if you actually read the guidelines and see how that applies to chiropractic, you're like, well, I'm not for this at all. Oh, so you're not for choosing wisely?
Wow.
See how that's appropriate?
Virtue signaling.
Yeah, it's appropriately named to gather more support.
I think masks maybe aren't as effective as we've been led to believe. Oh, so you don't care if people die?
Yeah. Leaping to conclusions, right? Non sequitur is the fallacy there. So this Choose Wisely program states that, again, evidence and research does not support that radiographs improve outcomes. Well, that depends on what your outcome or clinical objective is. If you're talking about outcomes for shoulder pain, sciatica, and all these conditions, well, that's not why, like, a Gonstead chiropractor or an upper cervical chiropractor, they're not taking X-rays or radiographs for that. They're taking it so they know when or where to adjust and in what direction or line of drive. Sure. So those are great guidelines in an orthopedic practice. And if you're a chiropractor looking for orthopedic outcomes, more power to you for those guidelines. Sure. However, if you are a chiropractor interested in the location, analysis, and correction of vertebral subluxation, then those guidelines really are not applicable at all.
Yeah, and I can touch on that as if you're viewing it from a very mechanistic approach. If someone comes in with neck pain, then the problem's in the neck, right? Yeah. So it would make sense then to only take a X-ray of the neck, and if there's and you're not viewing it really chiropractically, you're looking to see if there's any pathology in there. Do they have a fracture or something? Whereas the way the Gonstead people are looking at it is they're like, it's the whole level foundation, subluxation versus compensation. You could have a compensation in the cervicals, but from a Gonstead analysis, the subluxation might be in the thoracics or it might be in the lumbars. Yeah. And here's having to compensate just to keep your eyes on the horizon. And this whole thing about like the X-rays, it's not evidence-based. If you go to the Gonstead textbook where they show you like the pre and post radiographs, and they're like, okay, we didn't, the person has this shape going on in the spine, but you get a level foundation, you adjust the subluxation here, which might be the thoracic or the lumbar, it'll automatically correct itself. Might not even have looked at the cervical, but we needed to know that. It's like a mosaic. Yeah. It's like a whole picture of a mosaic there, but you're looking at the two tiles here, and you're only focused on this. No, take a step back, and we'll look at the whole thing. And that's from a Gonstead analysis. That's the way I understand that they're looking at it.
I like that analogy. That's like the mosaic. It's like you're Da Vinci's The Last Supper, and you're like this close to the painting. And you're like, what is it a painting of? Oh, it's a loaf of bread, right? Then you back up. You're like, oh, there's like a couple dudes here at the table, right? It's like that narrow
There's
scope.
no evidence to suggest that there's anyone sitting at this table. There's only a loaf of bread.
I also want to remark too, or
art is quackery.
It's pseudoscience, pseudo art.
I'm a progressive artist.
Forward-thinking artist. I want to give some credit to George Curry when I heard him speak, who was he delivered such a good presentation about the X-rays. And if you ever get a chance to listen to George Curry, I highly recommend it. But like of the 20-something contraindications for giving chiropractic care, 21 contraindications for chiropractic care. 17 of them, I could be wrong, have to check them. 17 of them, you need a radiograph to confirm. So where are all the evidence-based people there? Right? Yeah. And by the way, this also harkens back to what we talked about, the patient's best interest. Okay, so again, if for the patient's best interest, then why aren't you taking an X-ray? My buddy's a dentist, one of the best in the Netherlands, actually. He's an endodontologist. I go to him. He's my tennis buddy. Anytime I have a problem with my teeth, he takes care of me. Sure. When we first met and I first went into his office, first things first, man, like full X-ray.
Yeah. You wouldn't dream of...
No, not even. And we didn't even do a history, nothing. It's just dentists, like, I need to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So what is the problem with chiropractors needing to see what's going on? Right? A dentist wants to see everything in your mouth, get a good feel, like there's things that they cannot palpate, cannot see with their mirrors and all poke with the metal. Yeah. They want to look at the roots. Tell me, what can you see about the spine besides posture without X-ray, right? This is ridiculous.
I have one for the people that think that we should, hashtag cancel, everything's cancelled in 2021, that we should hashtag cancel X-rays. We're supposed to be specialists in the spine. We're trying to take a look at the spine. Would a mechanic try and fix your car without popping the hood first? Like, think about what you're saying. Would a mechanic try and fix your car without first having a look under the hood? You're saying that you're a specialist in the spine and the nervous system, yet you're saying that we shouldn't have a look at the spine. It makes no sense.
Oh, man. Dude, I just want to say thanks for this interview. It's in person is better with a couple beers. I've never really cut loose like this. And
I've got one coming out called Cocktails and Chiropractic, and me and Jaime Pinillos basically just sit and get trashed and tipsy and talk about chiropractic philosophy. And it's great, and you're going to love it.
I was just thinking the same thing. I think the more I drink, the more I can actually relate to the extremists.
Connection to innate.
I can better communicate with those people on the extreme ends because I'll appeal to reason less. So maybe that helps. I don't know.
All right.
What do you think of this blonde beer as well?
That is lovely. This is better than the blonde beer that you gave me last night. But this man has a draft in his house. He has a Star Wars arcade game.
Whoa.
Are we not allowed to say that?
It's okay.
He has a draft in his house, and I think that's such a chiropractic thing to do because it's like, oh, well, you're not going to let me go to the bar. Well, fuck you, I'm going to make my own bar. Yeah. Is any more? Anything you want to touch on?
That was all 10.
All right. Thank you very much, Travis. Go join his Facebook group. Say it again, Veritas.
Yeah, it's not a spoken language anymore, but it's Latin for the truth will set you free. Veritas, Vos, and then the Latin for liberty or freedom. Just message me, right? You can message me on Facebook Messenger or send me an email at tcthedc@gmail.com.
And my Instagram handle is evidence-based vegan chiropractor 69.